You did.
All right. If I can try and capture the Seder somewhat in a couple of thinking moments, every Chag we highlight this one question, like this is the question of the Yom Tov that we don't understand. So, for example, Chanukah, we say, how come Chanukah is the only mitzvah that you have a halacha of Mahadran and Mahadran and a Mahadran? Obviously, the Chanukah people didn't know about Pesach Kashrus, so you have all these different levels of how the best way to do it. Right? In Sukkot, you have a special mitzvah of Hiddur mitzvah. We're going to decorate our Sukkah. When it comes to Pesach, there is a single line that's kind of rolled into our Haggadah that is really what we focus on way, way more than any other aspect of the entire Seder. Rolled up in the mitzvah, in the halacha of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Haggadah says, V'chol hamar b'lasaper b'Yitzias Mitzrayim, anyone who adds, they go above and beyond with their sharing, with their stating of their telling over of leaving Egypt, Harei zeh meshubach leishu praise. It's the only mitzvah that we find where we're being praised for doing something. And my little personal caveat is I think that became the focus of the Seder as opposed to the first half of that, which is a mitzvah l'saper b'Yitzias Mitzrayim. We kind of forget the Sipur part, and we're so focused on the marber l'saper b'Yitzias Mitzrayim. We kind of overdo the second part of it and really not focus on the actual mitzvah of v'ikaret lavincha b'yom ha'chol. It's a mitzvah to share with our children, to tell it over. So let's take a couple of basic questions, and I know that coming out to learn 3 days before Pesach is not easy. It's a vacation maybe. So let me try and give you something that will at least, maybe will inspire me, hopefully will inspire you as well, to think about the Seder in somewhat of a different way than you have in the past. So there's a couple of different things that happen throughout the Haggadah, throughout the story that are worth in and of themselves looking at. First of all, this whole concept of V'chol hamar b'lasaper b'Yitzias Mitzrayim harei zeh meshubach, that concept alone, we'll come back to that later, that concept alone seems very strange. Why do you have to extend your telling of a story almost to the point of please exaggerate what happened so that we could feel, I don't know, whatever, right? Last week, I apologize it didn't get posted, but I posted a question when we canceled our Shiur. When we canceled our Shiur due to the snow. So I posted the following simple question. Right? The mitzvah is to be Saper Mitzvah Mitzrayim. You're supposed to tell over that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. I saw your answer. Thank you.
No, that was Ariel's answer.
I saw your answer. So at Ma'ariv, before we even start the Seder, we're going to say at the end of Kriya Shema, I am Hashem your God, Asher Tzeichim et Me'eretz Mitzrayim, that I took you out of Mitzrayim, L'eschem Elokim, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. That's how we finish Shema every single day. In and of itself, we have just fulfilled the mitzvah, assumingly, of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Then we're going to come home, and we're going to make Kiddush, and in Kiddush we're going to say, Zecher L'Yitzias Mitzrayim. Again, so at that point, can we just skip ahead? Let's get to the Matzah Maror, which is definitely a mitzvah, and not spend that whole Magid trying to build up something that we've literally done it twice. There's no bracha for it. So why is that different? Obviously, it is different. It's a different mitzvah. Why is that different? Then there's another line in the Haggadah that I spent all the last 2 weeks looking at this one line. I never really spent a long time thinking about it, but this concept that V'afilu kulanu chachamim, even if we were all wise men, Nevonim, right? We were all Nevi'im, we were all Yodim as a Torah. We all knew everything. Mitzvah aleinu l'saper b'Yitzias Mitzrayim. We still have a mitzvah to tell over the mitzvah of discussing how Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. That's where the line comes in. V'chol hamar b'lasaper b'Yitzias Mitzrayim, because we already know it all, so we should discuss it again. Why is it so important? So I want to contrast a couple of different things and see if we can piece it all together. And from some of what we discussed, maybe everyone will find some inspiration. There's a couple of different pieces here, and we'll see if we can piece them together. On Shabbos, I was learning with David Year some of the psukim that relate directly to Yitzias Mitzrayim. It's interesting, if you go through Haggadah, the Haggadah is not designed to tell anything about Yitzias Mitzrayim. It goes through psukim of slavery, it goes through how hard it was, it goes to Hashem took us out. It doesn't tell the story. It's completely absent from the Haggadah. So, just to contrast the concept, there's a pasuk in the beginning of Shemos, which I think to me has always been completely an oversight. There's a whole discussion in Rashi which really captures our attention, and maybe because of it we forget the point that the pasuk's making. Right in the beginning of Shemos it says, "Vayakom melech chadash al Mitzrayim." There was a new king, right? Rashi takes our attention and says maybe it was a new king, maybe it wasn't a new king. We forgot about Yosef, and then we move on with the story about how slavery began. Take a minute and let's just contrast slavery and freedom to the idea of Vayakam Melech Chadash Am Mitzrayim. Anybody becomes a leader of anything, the first thing you do is you take inventory of what you have. Right? You become the CEO of a company, you need to know what are your holdings, where are you up to? Financially, are we broke? Do we have money? Can we invest? Can we grow? Where do we stand? How did we get to here? And when I figure out how I got to here, I can decide how to grow. Vayakam Melech Chadash Am Mitzrayim, we got this new king shows up, and he didn't take the time to think about how did he become the wealthiest country? He obviously was missing something, a very basic appreciation. Let's contrast that to Bnei Yisrael receiving the Torah. Right? Did we stop and appreciate, or are we the same as Vayakam Melech Chadash Am Mitzrayim? Did we stop and take a minute and say, wow, I got here from some, how did I get to be the chosen nation, Am HaNivchar? What did we do that earned us that title? Okay, so let's go back to Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Shvatim, the investments they made, the investments that our forefathers made in Mitzrayim that brought us to Matan Torah, the same as Paro should have. The introduction to slavery is contrasted. The reason it's there is to show us, take a minute, realize how we got here. We got here from somewhere else. We started somewhere, we struggled, we had slavery. So in the terms that I use for David Yair, the slavery was there to teach us what the opposite effect of freedom is. And we think of freedom as lawless, as totally open. It's not freedom. Freedom is a Torah giving us very specific guidelines, which beforehand, when we were slaves, we had no guidelines. We only had one job, and that was to do whatever our master said. There was no logic, there was no discussion, there was nothing to inspire us. It was a completely inspirational-less situation. So before slavery even begins, we start with this concept. The obvious is we're missing something. He's missing the idea that there was a Paro before him, there was a Yosef before him. He became a great king of a great nation because somebody invested before him. The same as Matan Torah is the outcome of Yitzias Mitzrayim, which is the outcome of slavery, which is the outcome of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Very, very important in understanding the Mitzrayim as a whole. So now we understand the contrast, we understand Bnei Yisrael, who we are, and what we got to. So now let's go back a little bit to the idea that anybody if we all were great, brilliant, unbelievable people, we'd still have a mitzvah l'saper b'yitzias Mitzrayim. We still have to be involved in the discussion, essentially in reliving. There's a line in the Haggadah that really I think that every single Haggadah in the world discusses this simple question, which is how are we supposed to fulfill the mitzvah of viewing ourselves as though we left Mitzrayim? Right? We have to see ourselves as though we left. And every single Haggadah discusses some aspect of how and why. And Rav Tursky has my favorite answer of all. He says, we're so capable of daydreaming all the time. One time in a year that it's a mitzvah to daydream, now we're asking how we're supposed to daydream. It's a mitzvah. Close your eyes and daydream like you do every single day. That's Rav Tursky's psychological answer, by the way. If you haven't ever, it's definitely worth taking a couple minutes to read through Rav Tursky's Haggadah, at least the introduction, where he discusses the concept of being slaves to our own vices, and that when we've given up our freedom to whatever it is that distracts us, we can't grow. It's a great, phenomenal introduction, and he's got wonderful things in his Haggadah, but that's really, if you have nothing else to do for 5 minutes, read his introduction. So we're obligated that we have to see ourselves leaving Mitzrayim. And no matter how smart we are, how much we know, we still have to discuss it. And we can't fulfill our mitzvah by saying Shema and by making Kiddush. So obviously there's a piece that we're missing. I'm not Hasidish by any means, and I generally don't wander through Hasidish Svarim. I happened to have been in Hasidish shul a couple months ago, and I pulled the Noam Elimelech off the shelf. The Noam Elimelech is one of the three foundations of Hasidus. Was Parshas Yisro, so I began making my way through Noam Elimelech and Parshas Yisro, and right at the beginning, the Noam Elimelech describes really the answer to all these questions. In order to be inspired by anything, you have to experience it. Nobody can be inspired by somebody else's experience. If I had to sum that up, I would say, in modern terms, HTBT. If you weren't there, it's not going to inspire you. You can hear stories, you can read them, you can watch videos. It's not going to have the same impact. You have to be there in order to feel it. Right? In the case, the Noam Elimelech goes on to explain why Yisro went out to Moshe. Why did he have to go? And then he questions Kriyas Yamsuf, how could that happen? And he blames it on Yosef, because Yosef's investment in Mitzrayim, therefore everybody could benefit because of Yosef. That's much more Hasidish than I'm capable of explaining. But if we want to be inspired, we have to be there. So saying Shema, just saying that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, there's zero experience. It's remembering, it's a shout out. We make Kiddush. Kiddush is literally a shout out. We're making Kiddush, a Shabbos, it's Yom Tov, whatever it is. Zeich L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. Just to remember, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. We sit down in a Seder. It's not about a Zecher or a shout out. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. It doesn't matter how much you've studied and how many Haggadahs you've read through. It matters that you can put yourself in the scene of Yetzias Mitzrayim and make it experiential. If I can't feel it, you have to see yourself. It's not talking about telling stories. It's talking about connecting it to ourselves. It's very nice to read it out of a Haggadah, but if it doesn't connect to me, it's not going to inspire me. And then my Pesach is going to be just a very nice collection of literature, stories, but it didn't connect. Connecting is really the key. Making it real. It's got to be us. If it's not us, then it's not going to inspire me. It's not going to be this great moment. It's not going to make me feel like I'm part of the Am HaNivchar. Starting the second day, we're going to start counting Sfira. I should feel that. I should be excited for it. Matan Torah is coming. We're going to be there. It's us. It's our nation. We're part of it. We experience these things. Physically, were we there? No. So then, how do we experience it? So that's when we start to add in more modern stories, connections to things that are more tangible to us, parts of our lives, our parents, our grandparents' lives, our great-grandparents' lives, challenges they went through, understanding the concept that Kadosh Baruch Hu was always there, understanding the contrast of Vayakam El Chadash Mitzrayim. How did we get to who we are? What was the investment before? What losses were there? And I have no cousin. I have one cousin on one side. The rest of the family was wiped out in the Holocaust. Somehow, inevitably, Holocaust becomes part of the Seder. I remember my grandfather, blessed memory, used to sit in halfway through the Seder, he'd interrupt and start talking about his experience, little bits of it, about his experience of having been in the camps. And I remember being upset about it once and asking one of my rebbeim about it. And he said, "You don't understand. You can close your Haggadah. That's what you need to be hearing. We invested. There was pain. There was challenge. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifted us up from that and brought us to where we are today. We're the Sheres HaPleita. We're the survivors of this unbelievable catastrophe that took place. And we're still here learning Torah, and we survived. And tell the story of the Panovich Rebbe had a stopover in Rome. He had an 8-hour stop, so he grabbed the bacher who was with him. He said, "Quickly, let's rent the car. We got to go see the Arch of Titus." And Rebbe, it's just an arch. He said, "I don't care. We got to go see it." So he got in the car and he drove. It's like 5 hours from the airport. He's running crazy, trying to skip traffic. Gets out of the airport, out of the car, looks up at the arch, and says, "We're still here. Let's go. We're still here. We made it. You think you took our menorah, destroyed our Beis Mikdash? It had no effect on us. It's painful. We're in Galus, but we're still here." We're able to bring everything to the level of our experience, of our lives. Everybody's gone through something. Rabbi Twersky says in his introduction, we're all slaves to a certain vice in our own lives. And our job is to try and figure out how we're going to overcome that. We're going to make the Haggadah into our own personal book of experience. Right? The psukim are there. They're laid out. We cry out to Hashem. That's first day Yom Tov speech. If you're all oversleep, you can come 9:15. 9:15 minyan. We're diving downstairs because there's no other 9:15 minyan. You're welcome to come. We're talking about the power of tears and tefillah. I speak for about 3 minutes there, so maybe 4. It'll be a much shorter version. We have to make the Haggadah. We have to make the Seder night not just a zecher of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but an actual Yitzia from Mitzrayim for ourselves. A couple weeks ago, I happened to, I was sharing some stories with Haron, our Rosh Kollel. The goal when we share stories is to see who could out-creep who. And he shared a phenomenal story after I thought I had him. He shared a story which was more personal because he was involved. I was sharing it third hand. He told the story, for a couple of years he worked for Yad Vashem. And during that time he was giving a couple of shiurim, so he had some svarim on his desk one day, and the executive director of Yad Vashem came into his office. I apologize, I can't remember the man's name. He had been there for about 9 years. Ron was there for a year or two. He didn't really know him from beforehand. And the fellow looked at his desk. He saw there was a whole pile of Hilchos Shabbos svarim. So he said, "What are you doing with all those Hilchos Shabbos svarim?" He said, "I give shiur on it was Tuesday night, Thursday night. I give shiur on Hilchos Shabbos." He said, "Great. What are you giving shiur on tonight?" He said, "Tonight I'm giving shiur on Hilchos Special." So this fellow went to rattle off for the next 45 minutes a complete shiur on Hilchos Special, Shulchan Aruch, Shibur, Halacha, ins and outs, and Heterim and Kulos and Chumras. Wonderful. He says, "Wow, I didn't realize you were so up on lace of Shabbos. I know everything about Shabbos inside out." Great. Through the course of the conversation, the man mentioned, because since I became Choser B'Tshuva, I reconnected through Shabbos. wait a second, I didn't realize you're Choser B'Tshuvah. I thought you're always, He says, no, I was a Holocaust survivor, and after the Holocaust, I was totally not turned on. So, fine, let's put that scene on hold. Earlier that day, Rav Aron had conducted an interview with somebody who had been present for a particular situation in Bergen-Belsen. There was a tremendous outbreak of body lice, and one of the inmates couldn't deal with it anymore and decided to schlep his mattress out in the middle of the night and burn his mattress in the middle of the camp because he just couldn't deal with all the lice. So, as a punishment, all the inmates were told the next day there was not going to be any food. The next day happened to be Tisha B'Av. There was no food for anybody. Nobody's eating. Everyone's going to be forced to fast. Depending on which side of the coin you look at, it's either really good or terribly painful to be forced to fast on Tisha B'Av. And there was one girl there who was taking care of her little baby sister. And her little baby sister wasn't going to fast. She wasn't going to make it. So as it was, I guess the child was already hidden. The older sister decided that she was going to sneak a packet of whatever food that she had been saving for her sister to be able to eat so she'd survive. And the Nazis caught her. So they decided they were going to have a trial, which is how they normally did it. Now, the way these trials were set up, the trial was conducted by the Jewish inmates. You were judged by your peers. So you had your Jewish judge, your Jewish secretary, everyone sat around the table. The Nazis stood on the side watching, and they brought the woman in, and they said to her, we understand you were caught making food. Do you admit to this? And she shook her head, yes. Do you have anything to say in your defense? She shook her head, no. And they sentenced her to 4 days without food in solitary confinement. So afterwards, they asked, why didn't you say anything? The Holocaust's over, we survived, it's great. Why didn't you tell them that you were protecting your baby sister? Maybe they would have lessened the harsh decree. And she said, I couldn't. It was Friday night, and they were all Jewish. And if I would have said anything, I would have caused them to be Mechal Shabbos on my behalf. So now we're back to the office, and everyone says, so, what made you connect to Shabbos and to Yiddishkeit again? And he says, he starts telling the whole story, heard this interview, the same thing, right? And he says, everyone says, I don't understand. It's a very nice story. It's definitely inspirational, but it's not enough to drive someone to change their entire life. What about this story inspired you? And he said, the secretary was me. Now it's experiential. It's not just a story anymore. When it moves from being a story to being an actual experience, then, like the Naim El says, it's our experience, and we can become inspired by it. So let's go back to the Seder. If it's just a historic event, we're discussing how we left Egypt and how this group of people experienced all of these different events, and it's history. It's not going to be inspirational. It's not going to give us the chiyus, the life we need to move on. But if we view ourselves as part of it, if it's experiential because it's our parents and our grandparents, because it highlights the way that Hashem has dealt with us and been there for us and had our backs through all of history, always, then it becomes experiential to us. It's the beginning point of our nation survival through every single different challenge for almost 4,000 years that we as a nation have gone through. And at the underlying base of it, there's a very, very important aspect. And that is the concept. It's in Tehillim. We say it almost every single day of the year, except Shabbos and Erev Pesach. Mizmor Soda, right? Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Serve Hashem with joy. When we have a place, a platform of simcha to serve Hashem, when we are able to see what Hashem does for us, b'simcha, with joy, then it becomes experiential because our feelings are invested in it. One of my favorite piyutim on Tisha B'Av, it's toward the end of Tisha B'Av in the morning, I want to say it's Lamed Ches, does a comparison of how we left Mitzrayim and how we left Yerushalayim. Right? we left Mitzrayim with joy and riches. We left Mitzrayim. We left Yerushalayim broken and sorrow. We left with singing from Mitzrayim. We left crying from Yerushalayim. And at the end of this paragraph, the paragraph changes, and it says, "Rina v'Yeshua v'chatzotzot haTorah b'tzeisi Mitzrayim," with joy and salvation and trumpets of triumph. We left from Mitzrayim. Sason v'simcha v'nas yagam ba'anacha v'shuvi l'Yerushalayim. When we return to Yerushalayim, which is ultimately at the base of all of our interest, it's ultimately at the base of everything that we desire to reach for. There'll be joy and victory because we're going to go home. And all of those challenges and all of the things we've gone through in life and all the dark moments, they come to life because they're experiential, and we do them, we make them b'simcha. We add them to the aspect of joy. And we look back at our year, we sit at the Seder. It's a triumphant story of excitement, of positivity. And if we turn it into an experience, it gives us the base and the platform for serving Hashem b'simcha no matter what challenges come our way. They're not easy always. It's not easy to deal with daily life, but if done from simcha, then we're able to pick our heads up high as the victor. Know that Hashem has our back. Be inspired by the Seder, because that is the base of how it all works. And get through our daily challenges. Pesach is Zman Cheresenu. Right? The Gemara tells us, "B'Nisan Negal Asavesenu B'Nisan Negalu." We were redeemed in Nisan, and we'll be redeemed in Nisan again. And Eretz Hashem, through taking this approach of being experiential about our learning, about Yitzias Mitzrayim, through making it part of our personal story, and through adding simcha and true joy, no matter how hard the challenge is, somehow finding a way to feel inspired b'simcha that Hashem is there, we should truthfully be zoche that this coming Tisha B'Av will be a simcha just like Pesach, and we'll rejoice and we'll celebrate, and Mashiach will be here, and we will once again sound the trumpets. Sasan v'simcha v'nas yagam ha'anacha v'shuv Yerushalayim. We'll be joyed as we go back to Yerushalayim. If you look at the bracha of Geula, it highlights the idea that Hashem has always helped us, and Hashem will continue to help us. It's going to come. It's going to happen. We're going to reach the level of Geula through our simcha and through our experiences, starting with Pesach and all the way through the rest of our vast Jewish history. Chag Sameach.